Hey friends, this is Philip Robertson of Philip Robertson Property, and I have the pleasure of being here today with Garry Harvey, the property guy. Gary has been an investor for what? Tell us your story, Gary.
For 19 years, started in the year 2000, bought my first home, which was also an investment as well because it was a duplex. So, yeah, great way to start.
Yep.
That process.
Now, your investment property magazine rated you the number 2 investor in Australia.
Yes.
When was that?
Yeah, that was in 2012 that came out. So that was, really great to be recognised.
And what was the criteria?
You just had to put a submission forward about, what you'd done, why you'd done it, what types of strategies you'd used, successes that you'd had, and just a panel of people judged that submission. Yeah.
Fantastic. I know you well enough, Gary, that you have been very passionate about buying in regional Australia. Tell me why you've gone down that path, because traditionally when most people think about investing, they're buying a negatively geared property. There's a shortfall. It often looks great on paper, the numbers, but then of course it produces great stress. I found as when I was a mortgage broker that people had to make up the shortfall in the repayments. So tell us about why you went down the strategy or the path you did.
Yeah, sure. So I did it at the time I was investing. I didn't have a lot of money. I just started a business, so income was low, capital was low, and I thought, well, how can I get started? I couldn't afford to buy the $400,000 property in Melbourne. And I didn't want to focus on what I couldn't do. I thought I needed to put all my energy into what I could do. And I looked for properties that I could afford. And as I did my research and I went out looking for this sort of investment, I was just really surprised about, the types of returns you could get, how strong some of these regional centres were. I had a lot of comfort in investing in them. And it also sat really well with me for what my end game was. I really wanted to become an investor so later on in life I could have an income stream that would take over part or full of what I earn today. So by buying properties that were a little bit cheaper, had higher cash flow, just seemed to tick that box. And it also meant that I could pay those loans down because I had that surplus income, and I could also scale it. It was very scalable because I wasn't having to put my hand in my pocket to come up with excessive amounts of money each month. So I could duplicate the process many times, and that's why I went to regional Australia, and I'm a big advocate for it today still. Yeah.
Do you think? I think a lot of people, it's more that they don't know what they don't know. In other words, there's a lack of information because it seems that the media is very Sydney and Melbourne centric. We only hear about the big cities, whereas as an example, I know that in the last 12 months, 61 regional centres in Victoria had double-digit growth. But we just don't know about that. We don't get told about that. So I think really what our role as much as any is it's an education process, but really, really critical. I know you do your homework, is that we've got to give people really good, factual, independent research that makes sense based on what's happening in local economies. Because I know when I've been doing my research and I've got a mentor that's working with my business, and he talks about, Phil, you've really got to understand the local economies. These regional centres are not being impacted by what's happening nationally. It's what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, that's very true. You don't want to be investing in areas that don't have a future. There's not a lot of prosperity because your investment is at risk. But I think from what I'm seeing, there's a big push into the regions. From government, they're putting a lot of infrastructure, and they understand that the capital cities are stretched, and moving projects and head offices and government what's the word I'm looking for? Tax offices down in the Latrobe Valley and
government
departments. All of that builds those regional areas and makes them stronger. And I just think that's going to keep continuing, and we're already seeing it. You go out to some of these regional areas and they're busy now.
They are.
There's a lot of things happening, and you can get really good growth down there. Often it's not spoken about because they're smaller numbers. If you get 10% growth on 150,000, well, it's only $15,000. You get 10% growth on $1 million in a capital city. So I think the media moves more towards that stuff that sounds grander, but at the end of the day, it's all about buying these assets and building these assets that you can afford, you can manage, and they're actually going to deliver the results you need in the future.
And I think the important thing is, I know your strategy, because we've discussed it, and it's one that I'm now using, is that you want to get to a point in your retirement that you've got cash flow, because people's super often is not going to be enough. I don't have enough super myself, and you want to make sure that you've got a cash flow coming in, because I talk to clients about, and when I was a broker as well, that there's going to be a day that you're going to get your last paycheck. So however long you're going to live, that's got to last. So if you have other income streams, such as regional properties that are giving you a great rental yield, it's nice that you can have cash flow in the bank so that you can enjoy those golden years, rather than think, gosh, I've got to reduce my standard of living because I've only got a limited amount of money. So I'm a big advocate for what you're saying.
That's right. And look, I've come across a lot of people too that have done all the right things years ago. They've bought properties, and they're worth a lot of money, but the return on them is really small, and they actually don't get to live the lifestyle that they want. And I call those types of people poor millionaires. They're very asset rich, and like I said, they've done all the right things. What they've bought has grown in value, but the returns are so small, and then land tax just takes so much of that income anyway, and it's not uncommon for people to have $2, $3, $4 million worth of property, and they live at just a very, very basic standard of living, because you're just not getting the return. So having a different approach, and that opens up so many different areas all around Australia, it can deliver that higher income, and you can actually live that life later on, because you've got the income coming in month in, month out.
Love it. Garry, really appreciate your time today. Friends, Garry Harvey, the property guy, fantastic mortgage broker, fantastic fella, and loves helping people, as do we at Philip Robertson Property. Have a wonderful day, friends, and bye for now.